Basement, level vibes with another one, straight up, blackness aye. Who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, I do it for the love, him not do it for no money. Straight up, him attack, educating everybody. Big up my friends and big up my family. Turn on the radio, catch the vibes, it's integrity. Straight up, Benskop stands for unity. One people, one nation, one destiny. Free up the truth in the air, even the blind can see. The deaf can hear, the dumb can talk, the cripple can walk. Boom. Who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, we have to gather wrong, grab a seat and sit down, pay attention. Education, liberation, we have to stand strong. Benskop upon the radio, lively up the program. Everybody call somebody and let them turn and tune and pon the radio and catch the boom song. We boom it up already, we have to boom it up again. Expose and reveal him. Who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, I do it for the love, him not do it for no money. Straight up, him attack, educating everybody. Big up my friends and big up my family. Turn on the radio, catch the vibes, it's integrity. Straight up, Benskop stands for unity. One people, one nation, one destiny. Free up the truth in the air, even the blind can see. The deaf can hear, the dumb can talk, the cripple can walk. Boom. Who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth.
Yeah, my name is Jacinty Caldata, Francis Vietnam, and since 1965 I become a voter, and I always place my ex next to the cup. And what they are doing today, I can't take it. So I have no more vote to give to PPP anymore. I'm not going to vote anymore no more. If they have to lose by one vote, they're losing it by data. I have none.
Oh, Jesus Christ, if cost of living double, I don't know what happened. A pound of sugar is $300 already. Flour, everything gone up. Everything just raising. You gotta get about $40,000 for buy good ration. You gotta get 3 man now. A weekend man, a monthly man, and a fortnight man.
How we gonna do a body man walk right now? You ready? Fuck, so let me go now. Hear me sing now. Body walk, body walk, body walk, everything. Body walk, truck, body walk, body walk. Body walk, everything, body. Listen, body jump, body jump, body jump, everything, body jump, body jump, body jump, body jump, everything. Hear me sing, so big body down, wearing tight pants, big body jump.
Hey fans, it's karaoke and oldies night this and every Thursday at Club Twilight Sideline Dam, Buxton. Dance to the magical songs of yesteryear by popular DJs and Camps Audio. Admission is free. Come out, let's make memories at Club Twilight Sideline Dam, Buxton North.
I almost didn't make it, but I'm glad enough that I'm here. I had to make sure that is, in Guyana you say you gotta get transportation money, and when you run out of money, you gotta borrow. You gotta borrow, right? Hey, lend me a this and lend me a that, but hey, this is straight up, right? My name is Mark Benchap, and welcome to 107.1 FM. We're gonna rock and roll tonight, and somebody already peeped me. They saw when I was on, and our guests might be asking, "What is peep? What is somebody peep me? What does that mean? Somebody peep me?" And say, "Hey, Mark, you gotta shave. What's happening there?" Oh, you gotta borrow money to shave, right? You gotta borrow money to run a political campaign. You gotta ask for money to do this. Everybody asks for money, but somebody cussing Benchap out and say, "Benchap borrow money from someone." Hey, these guys are something else. These orangutans are something else, huh? Rajin, what's going on? Rajin Bim, haven't seen you in a long time. Minette Sion, how are you? Minette Sion. Minette Sion is saying, "Mark, it's nice you make it. The other night I wasn't on. It was a big cuss out. People love to pick upon me. I don't pick on anybody. I'm innocent. I don't go in the trenches with nobody. I don't nothing. I am innocent." Siobhan McDonald, right? I'm innocent. People come here to just send requests to each other. Hi, Beatrice. Hi, Michelle. Hi, some other guy named Mark. They carry on their own conversation. I hope Wayne Caesar is there. And Wayne, watch out who having sidebar conversations. Watch them for us, Wayne. Nadira, how are you doing? Sukraj, good folks from out in Essequibo there. Good folks. How are all of you? How are you guys doing? Lawrence and the whole crew. Look, I might go on and on and on and on. Jagier thinks he knows that these sort of shows are basically destroying them, completely destroying them, if you know what I mean. This show or these kinds of shows are destroying Jack Dale and the PPP. They know that. They know that. And then they get some of the Pakus supposed to be on the side of the, "Oh, man, Jack lost all the numbers on the show and it drove." Like, who cares? Give me a break. Who cares? All right, look, enough of that. Enough of the lampshades and all these sort of things. Let's get our guests. What's going on? William Bill Cato, if you're looking for a job, Lemon is about to get fired. Again, Lemon is about to get fired. But let's go to Thomas Anderson. No stranger to you guys. Thomas, I know we're a little bit late. We had to just borrow some money to get here, pay the minibus fare. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm great, man. How are you? How's the audience? Hope everyone's doing great this evening.
Yeah, the audience, those who are in the audience, they're doing great. They're ready to rock and roll. And we're not going to get into jiggery pokery business. I know you're not from Guyana, Tom, but I guess you could read between the lines when I say we are here to do business. We are not here for no jiggery pokery.
Yeah,
Let me see. Take a shot at it. What does that mean, you think?
Yeah, I think I saw some of it on Facebook, man. And all the gossip. And I think we call it the gossip, and we call it, that kind of stuff over here, right?
Okay, good. You got to understand. For some reason, I think somebody for you from Guyana, great grandmother or something like that. I don't know. But Tom, it's really good to see you. And let's again say good night to all of you in the audience. Thanks all of you who have shared the link already and who will continue to share the link. All right, so let me see what's happening. Allison Bennett said right away, big time views. And Allison, you're right. Allison says, look, Mark, right now sugar is dead in Guyana. We're not getting sugar in the supermarket. Just imagine that, Tom. billions of dollars, billions upon billions of dollars they put into the sugar industry, and no sugar at all. What is your take, sir, as we begin tonight's show?
Well, it's a much needed commodity, sugar. And so, like I was saying, I've said before, as I've come on the show before, I've said, whenever there's war in the world, especially the one in Ukraine, where you have a lot of grain being taken off the market or used in ways that isn't where it usually goes, I think you end up in a situation where maybe sugar runs low for some people because others need it. So yeah, I mean, look, we subsidize sugar here in the States, huge, billions. I think we're putting in about $6 billion a year into our sugar. So it's definitely one of those things that as I said before, Guyana needs to really pay attention to their their export controls, to make sure that they're not sending out too much because of the domestic population and what they need.
Lots and lots indeed. Lots of problems in the country. High unemployment. Corruption is massive. Sanction is going up and up. Visa revocations. All manner of things happening in Guyana. Just got a message from a Gaisuco worker all the way in Barbados saying, hey, Mark, good night. No sugar. No sugar. And basically, this sugar worker is saying that he is glad that it is rare because he can't eat sugar. Well, okay, fair enough, but he's confirming that it's indeed. And the other problem they have there is the electricity. Every single moment, there's blackouts upon blackouts upon blackouts. And for those of you who saw the other day that, thank you, Lemon, you guys saw there the bridge, the Demerara Harbor Bridge. This was done. A trawler hit that bridge on June 4th. It is 18th of June, which means 14 days after. They're now coming to you to say that the two trawlers that hit this Demerara Bridge, the two trawlers belong to Pretty Paul Singh. Now, let me say this to you guys. They are only now confirming this, when in fact, the very night this thing happened, they knew that it was Pretty Paul Singh's trawler. They knew that, but they just didn't want to report that to you guys at all. Completely false. Now, we are not running away from the sanctions. We know that everybody's quiet in Guyana. Those in the opposition seem to have their own damn fight amongst each other and burning up their energies with each other, boxing and slugging it out. And meanwhile, no one is focusing on the sanctions. But let's get back to the sanctions, Tom. And again, thanks for being on with us. This guy, Ramotar, is the former minority president of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. And after the sanctions, he is saying now that he was never briefed by U.S. on gold smuggling probe. He was never briefed. Now, before I get to your question, this guy, Raphael Trotman, who was the Minister of Natural Resources, said that as soon as they got into office in 2015, guess what? The U.S. approached them and they started to investigate the smuggling of gold. So it appears to me that the U.S. law enforcement agencies were comfortable dealing and sharing information with the coalition government than they did with the PPP regime. This guy, Ramotar, is confirming that the U.S. never briefed them on anything. How strange is this statement coming from Ramotar?
Well, it's an eyebrow raiser. I mean, I won't say that it's strange, right? But I will say, Mark, that, and I'll say to your audience, whenever a high-level official is stating that they were never contacted while they were in office during a time that other officials have said they were contacted by the U.S., or as Jack Dale said in his last press conference, he said, look, We've been contacted by the U.S. multiple times for many, many years, going back multiple different administrations, is what he was saying, because of the gold smuggling problem. So when you have that issue, and then you have a man like Romatar saying, look, they never came to me. At the time that this was happening, I was thinking to myself that the U.S. authorities never went to him. I was thinking it myself, because I said, with the way things were going back then, it just didn't seem like there was much information being shared between us and guys like Romatar. And I wondered back then, why was that? And I always assumed it was because we didn't trust him. We didn't trust the PPP. I assumed that. I didn't know that to be the case, but I assumed it. Fast forward to the Granger administration, you could see that there was more work being done between the United States and Guyana. And now you see even more work being done, right? After that foundation was laid, now you see even more work. But it's not strange, but you see the pattern is the same. Here we are again with the PPP regime. And now Jack Dale and these guys are saying, well, they're not getting information from the United States government. They're just being given the sanctions and press releases. They're not getting any documents. Well, you have to ask yourself why. Why won't the U.S. government give them the documents before they put the sanctions down? Well, maybe there is a trust issue, right? There probably is a trust issue. And this trust issue has gone on for a long time with Guyana. So it's one of those things where you're going to hear some people say they never got any briefings. You're going to hear other people say, yes, they were briefed, because our government has to be very careful in who we deal with in Guyana, because you just never know who is a bad guy.
That's well said, Tom Anderson. 21 minutes after 9 o'clock, you just never know who is the bad guy. But this is interesting, though, and I'm glad that you've explained it, that this guy, Ramutar, is claiming that he has never been briefed. And we all understand why he has never been briefed. He became president sometime in 2011. There was a gold heist in Curacao in 2012. The biggest gold heist in Curacao. And he is saying, because according to the evidence, the boat came from Guyana, and there's allegations that the Mohammeds owned that shipment of gold. That's the allegations. Maybe the people in law enforcement in the U.S. got that information, but I don't have that information. With such a large gold heist, and the then Minister of Natural Resources, Robert Passad, promised an investigation. We were told that investigators from Guyana went to Curacao to work along with the police team there. Nothing else we have heard about that matter. With such a large gold heist, you're saying, or this guy is saying, that he was never briefed by the U.S. about anything, Tom? How strange again this is, that the biggest gold heist in Curacao, with a shipment linked to, allegedly linked to the Mohammeds in Guyana, Robert Passad got involved, and this guy Ramutar, while he was president, said he was never briefed. Mind you, Ramutar is said to be a close friend of the Mohammeds.
Well, here's the other thing, too. He may be in a position where he doesn't want to admit that he was briefed. He might be in a position where it's better to claim, to feign ignorance and say, I didn't see anything. I know nothing about it. Right. I mean, it seems like that's one of the best defenses right now is to either say, I knew nothing about it, or point the finger. But it's bad either way. Either he's lying because he doesn't want anyone to know that he was briefed, or he was never briefed because the U.S. government didn't trust him to brief him. Either way it goes, it's not a good look, right?
Certainly not a good look. But I don't trust this guy, and the majority of folks don't trust this guy, this minority president, former minority president, who under his presidency, 3 persons were slaughtered in Linden. They were innocent individuals. They were slaughtered in Linden, and Lindeners and the rest of Guyana will never forget it. Absolutely never forget it. But under David Granger's administration, there was what was called the nimble mule. And the Nimble Mule was a group that was formed to keep an eye on those who were smuggling gold. And so information was shared by the US with the authorities under the coalition government. That is what you call healthy partnership. We didn't see that. There's no evidence that that ever happened under the PPP regime. And I can only conclude, Tom, that the U.S. didn't trust Jack Dale. They do not trust Irfan Ali. And for certain, they didn't trust Ramutar. The U.S. had their operation, which was called Gold Digger. Gold Digger. That's the operation, Gold Digger. Again, let's get back to the sanctions. Tom, are you surprised that majority of folks in Guyana, those who are supposed to be running with this sanction and holding the PPP regime accountable, are not really doing or saying much?
Yeah, see that is something where, you know, it's the old saying where detective is there to investigate a crime, and there's this big dog in the house. And the detective asks, you know, the neighbors, did you hear any dog bark last night? And everyone goes, no. Well, isn't it strange that a home could be burglarized and you have a huge dog and no bark? Well, whoever robbed the house had to be someone the dog knew. Right? So so in this case, unfortunately, and I've said this before, and it's important that Jack Dale heard me say this before, and he mentioned it in his press conference, and he doesn't believe it, but it's true. When I say I don't pick a side, whether it's the PPP or the APNU, PNC, I don't pick a side. And the reason why I'm not picking a side is because I respect the people of Guyana. Their choice in their government is their choice, period. As an outsider, I'm grateful that the people of Guyana allow me to comment as an outsider on what's happening. But I can tell you, with what we're looking at and with the sanctions and everything going on, and the opposition not really taking this, because look, the sanctions that hit it's just a huge political earthquake, not just for Guyana, but for the entire region. We're talking, this was major. This was major, major, major. And so for the opposition to not be able to take advantage of it and use it in their platform to push for better governance, especially when it comes to export controls and taxing every ounce of gold that leaves, because we're talking a few $billions in taxes that the US dollars that the nation of Guyana is losing every year because the government itself can't track the exports properly. Okay. So the opposition, knowing how much Guyana needs, wouldn't it be beneficial to the country to be able to get a few $billions in revenue that is rightfully yours already? You don't have to raise a new tax. You don't have to come up with some new revenue. It's already there. You just need to have the paperwork to ask to demand the payments. That's it. And that's not happening. So why isn't the opposition pushing for this? It makes me wonder. Well, is the opposition compromised somehow? Are they, and I don't mean by are they in on it, is it so corrupt in Guyana now that even the opposition can't speak on something that is obviously something that needs to be spoken on? That's what I'm wondering, and that's what I'm looking at as an outsider. Because if the nation has gotten to the point now where something so obvious, like over $1 billion in tax revenue is going lost because the government can't figure out how to do it right with the exports of gold, and the opposition can't say a word about it when sanctions come down on that from the United States, have to stay quiet on it, that means maybe the country is totally so out of control of corruption that it's impossible to correct it. I don't know if that's the case, but I'm looking at it and I'm wondering if that is the case.
The next question, we haven't heard from this guy at all. Nothing from him at all. We do know that he and the Mohammeds are friends. We heard also, and maybe he should confirm it or deny, that Mohammed, they gave him several vehicles prior to him being installed as president, and even after he became the installed president. But the point is, Tom, are you surprised, sir? And sorry that I keep asking, are you
Yeah.
surprised that the only thing that the people of Guyana got from this installed government is a silly press release? Nothing, no press conference coming from Irfan Ali. Uh, what
Well,
is your take on that, sir?
well, look, man. I mean, I think the message, the possible, the the probable message it's sending to people here in the United States and others abroad looking at the situation, the message is the government's the problem. It's not the smugglers, it's not even the Mohammeds. It's the government. Okay? That's the problem. And if that's how people on the outside are looking at it the way I am, that the government's the problem, well, then it's just a matter of time before sanctions start to hit more government officials. I mean, it's pretty obvious. So they can try to ignore it. They can try to pretend like it's not a big deal, but it's a huge deal. And if they don't get a handle on it quickly, I think we're probably going to see some other government people getting sanctioned here, and for the pressure to continue to ratchet up, because it's a serious problem when you're losing billions of dollars in revenue that the people need. It's just a big problem.
So, what can you say? Because you did say, apart from the three that we already know that have been sanctioned, they could possibly be more that we haven't been hearing about. Talk
Of
to us a
course.
little bit about that, please.
Well, of course, because when you look at what happened with the Mohammeds and the sanctions on them, those can get deeper. They can go after other corporations they may have in Brazil or other places in South America. It can go further, man. And not only that, but they can start going into the government officials other government officials who may be involved. So that's why it's imperative that with the way things are going, that the government get involved, they change their system. And it's not about going after the smugglers right now. It's about showing that the government can actually keep track and charge a tax for every ounce of gold that leaves the country. That's what they have to be able to show and do. If they can do that, I think things will go very well for Guyana. Why? Because right then and there, you've got this massive revenue stream that the people desperately need, number one. But number two, it will eliminate a huge amount of a source of corruption, not just in Guyana, but throughout the Caribbean and that region. Trust me, the smuggling of the gold corrupts many, many other nations in the region. So this is a big deal that can make a huge impact on many, many, many lives if they can get this right, and they can get it right now.
And just getting it right and get it right now. There are more folks behind this, absolutely, and that is why. Because you notice, did say, Jagdeo did say that that they're going to go after the gold smugglers or something along those lines. I'm not sure whether you heard that, but if you did, do you wish to explain?
Yeah, I felt like that was a deflection. Yeah, you want to go after the gold smugglers, but the reality is, before you can go after the smugglers, you first have to know what's being smuggled. I mean, that's the first thing. And so you have to have something in place that tracks the gold, every single ounce. Once you have that in place, then you can start going after the smugglers. The problem is, if you go after the smugglers now, let's say Jack Dale says, to the U.S. government, hey, give me a list of all of the people who declared that gold from Guyana coming into the United States. And then he takes that list and he looks at the list that the Guyana government has for people who took gold out. And he notices, okay, well, these 5 people took out gold and it came to the United States, but we don't have documents here to show that it left here. So we're going to charge them money, and we're going to charge them for criminals for stealing the gold. Well, here's the thing. How does he know that those people didn't pay the taxes that they were supposed to pay in Guyana? How does he know that it wasn't a case where the person with the gold, they did everything right, and it was the government official who stole the money, who forged the documents? And so by not fixing the government apparatus first and just going after the so-called gold smugglers who may or may not have broken the law, he could be using the law to abuse people who are innocent, actually, and never fix the problem to begin with, which is government officials who can't get their stuff straight and who are forging documents and stealing cash.
Lots of that happening. Indeed, they know. Jack Dave knows, and Irfan Ali also knows who the big gold smugglers are. They have been smuggling gold out of Guyana and robbing the taxpayers for many, many years. And those who rob the taxpayers, guess what? They could oftentimes go back and throw a little crumbs here and there, build a little small roof, hand out a little something. And many people, oh, wow, they don't know that they're being robbed of taxes, billions of dollars of taxes. And so when they throw crumbs back at some of folks, it's good, it's nice. But let's touch on this here, Tom. Why you think Jack Dave is so quiet on allegations of corruption, massive corruption, as was exposed by Vice News and this guy Sue?
Yeah, well, here's what's happening, and Jack Dale touched on it a little bit in his press conference when he spoke about how Guyana had a system in place for licensing for oil that was a backwater system, is what he called it. And he said that they've brought it to the modern age. Now they have a modern licensing system for oil, right? He said the same thing for procurement. He said their procurement system when the PPP got into office was a backwater system, and they've turned it into a modern procurement system. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but this is what he's saying. And he's correct in the way that Guyana is a country that's developing very, very fast. And so you have a situation where what used to be the normal way to do business, which for Guyana standards was okay, the rest of the world, that's corruption, right? And so now as Guyana's coming onto the scene and the rest of the world is expecting the country and this government to behave in what we consider a civilized way and to put off these corrupting things that governments in the developing world get caught up in, you end up in a situation like Jack Deo, where he's used to doing business back when Guyana was backwater. And now all of a sudden you're in a modern age, and all those backwater things he did are catching up with him now. And it's hard for anyone to explain, well, back then that's how we had to do it. No one can explain all that. And so that's why I've always said from the beginning on all this stuff, it's really, really important that when something comes up and an issue comes up, that the government take care of it quickly. Don't worry about the past. Fix it now. If it's corrupt and people have pointed a finger at it, get rid of it, fix it, and understand that, hey, some of these things will happen. The people will forgive you if you correct your ways, but trying to cover it up or trying to continue with the same backwater system when clearly that's not what the people want, that's the problem. And that's where I think Jack Dale may be caught.
Maybe caught indeed. Again, good night to all of you if you're just joining us. Tom Anderson with us this evening, and we're going through the sanctions, the U.S. sanctions. More should be done by the opposition, not just the PNCR. More should be done by the Alliance for Change. More should be done by, I haven't heard anything coming from those guys in the APNU. I don't know what's happening. The Private Sector Commission is very quiet for obvious reasons, because we know the private sector's commission, many of them are corrupt. Many of them are possibly part and parcel of the gold smuggling. They're all quiet. But Mr. Anderson, Guyana, those guys were sanctioned. The Mohammeds were sanctioned, along with a government official who according to Jagdeo, resigned with immediate effect. Those folks got sanctioned together or simultaneously with the Russians, some Russian folks. And then there are allegations that a lot of these smuggled gold is being sent out to the Middle East, maybe Pakistan and other countries. Talk to us a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because when these sanctions came down on the Mohammeds and this one government official, when it comes to gold smuggling, you have to remember at that time the G7 was going on, and there was an announcement made by the countries there in Europe saying, hey, they're going to start to, first of all, put out new sanctions on Russia. And on top of that, they're going to start seizing their assets and using them to put towards rebuilding Ukraine. Something like $300 billion, I said, is what they said is what they're trying to get their hands on. And so that was happening when these sanctions hit. And at the same time, Russia was sending warships over to this region. So it looks like it's possible that the gold that's been smuggled out of here could have been bolstering Russian operations somehow. And now this is a part of the G7 nations in Europe, the United States. It's a part of us now clamping down on Russia. So maybe these sanctions have something to do with that. It's possible.
It's possible that the sanctions may have something to do with that, because Jagdeo seemed to have an air finale. They seem to have more of a focus in the Middle East. They're always there, collecting and borrowing monies and all manner of things. And we also know, according to information, that the Mohammeds have some in-laws who are Russians. I don't know. This is not to knock at their in-laws or whatever. But at the end of the day, the sanctions came just as the Russians were sanctioned, and the Russian warships, were on their way to the Caribbean Sea. Lots and lots of things we can talk about. Indeed, we spoke about the fact that that the Americans were cooperating with the Granger administration. We heard this from Raphael Trotman, who is the former Minister of Natural Resources. Tom, there's a question that I wish to have you, as an outsider, so to speak, looking in. Why do you suppose, because at his last so-called press conference, it was pretty obvious that Bharat Jagdeo is nervous about being accused that his government was actually installed and they didn't win the 2020 general and regional elections. Why is he so concerned about that perception?
Well, I mean, when you've got sanctions coming down from the United States, you've got Russian warships coming in, you've got Maduro threatening to take half your country, you've got Exxon looking at you sideways like, why can't you get your stuff straight? And then on top of that, everyone around is saying, hey, maybe you guys got installed and you don't even belong here to begin with. Yeah, that's a lot of pressure, man. And to not feel like you are duly elected, and to have any doubt for anyone to think that you aren't duly elected in the type of pressure chamber that they're sitting in right now. Yeah, I can see how they could be pretty prickly about that. And that's why when you notice, like, I don't really touch on that, not only with Guyana, but also in the United States, because I understand, look, I know that there are things you have to cover on your show. And I know there are things that the people of Guyana, it's very important, the elections, it is. But as an outsider, I don't like to throw anything on that, because that I can only confuse the situation, I think, right? And so I try to stay away from that part of it. But I will say this, with that said, it's imperative, once again, that Guyana get the systems in place so that elections are not only adhered to, but they're believed in by the people, right? And so this last election, so much controversy around it, so many issues. It's something that you just can't have going forward, because like I said before, you've got a neighboring country who's trying to take half of your country away. So when that's going on, you need to have some solidarity, and you have to have a system in place that everyone can believe in. And so that has to be number one. And I can understand why Jagdeo would be feeling nervous about that, because They don't need that right now. With everything that's going on, they need to feel like they are secure, and they probably don't feel that way, especially bringing that up.
You know, I noticed some people are getting a little prickly with whether the opposition. I'm saying I never said the opposition hasn't said anything. I am saying this is a, and you guys got to be able to read between the lines and understand before you jump and quack around. All I'm saying is that this is an important issue, that it has to be on the front burner. It has to be an issue every single day. It has to. It is important. It is not only important for one set of people, it is important for the entire country. And you just cannot say something last week at a press conference and allegedly say something some other time and feel that that is sufficient. They should have been at the regime to ensure that they hold the regime accountable. We want to know who are the other persons who were sanctioned, whether visa revocations or whatever. Understand politics, guys. Not just once you go at a press conference, blah, 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 and that's the end of it. It is not. The regime should be talking. They should be held accountable. People need to hold them accountable. That is what the opposition is there for. And the opposition should be at the doorsteps of the PPP calling for a commission of inquiry. We need to know who are these players. We need to know whether the government has other crooks in there, so to speak, according to the U.S. law enforcement agency, have them down as crooks. So we need to know whether there are other crooks, not just Mai or some Tucson is no longer there and she resigned. Who are the other participants? Because May Tucson would not have been acting as a permanent secretary. She would not have been acting alone. She has bigger bosses, and she cannot be sanctioned, and her bigger bosses weren't sanctioned. Tom, does that make sense?
Oh yeah, man, absolutely. No doubt about it. Look, it's impossible to have just the Mohammeds and Miss Thomas sanctioned and no one else be involved. It's impossible. So this is probably sprawling. As Jagdeo said, it's something that's been going on now for multiple years, maybe over 2 decades, uncontrollably, right? So you've got entrenched parties who have been enriched to God knows how much, as far as it goes, with wealth. Okay, so you've got powerful, enriched parties who have gotten super wealthy off of this mess, and they don't want to go anywhere, right? And so this has become probably a huge geopolitical issue, because who knows ultimately where the profits of the gold is really going. So this, since the U.S. government sanctioned the Mohammeds and Miss Thomas under the Global Magnitsky Act, that lets us know that the gold smuggling has affected the world markets. It's affected multiple governments around the world, and it's standing in the place of and getting in the way of fair elections, and it's corrupting people all over the place. So that's how big this is. So for the opposition, it's something that they really do need to get a handle on. They really need to understand what's going on here, because if they truly understand, then they know they have a big role to play. And the role they have to play is the one where no matter who's in charge of the country, you have to have a government apparatus in place that keeps track of this gold. You have to have it. And whether you're the opposition or whether you're in charge, anyone who's an elected official has a voice, they have a platform, they have to be pushing for the government itself to be accountable on this. This isn't even about politics right now. It's about a well-run government and the people of Guyana losing billions of dollars in their own money. So it's not politics even. It's about working right as a government. And the opposition has a position to play in that. And they need to know more about this in order to play their position properly for the entire nation of Guyana.
A lot indeed. I noticed a comment from Sherwin Green, and good night to Sherwin. Sherwin is very active these days. He's a politician now. Good night, Sherwin. Sherwin is saying that the gold is being smuggled to the BRICS countries. And the BRICS countries, you should know, folks, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Iran, Egypt, so forth and so on. What is your take on that comment from politician Sherwin Green?
It's probably true. And then that's why they got cited. That's why these sanctions happened under the Global Magnitsky Act, because it's going out to BRICS nations. It's going out to places where it shouldn't be going, right? That's why this happened. So yes, I think that comment's pretty accurate.
Absolutely. We got a comment here, and this is not a question to you, Tom. We'll move on. Leroy Nelson, good night to you, sir. He's saying, and I quote, the opposition is lazy. To date, they are yet to expand on the specific information Minister Trotman mentioned, the specific information with regards to the U.S. Was sharing information with, and they were cooperating with the coalition government from 2015 until 2020, when they were removed from office and the PPP was actually installed. This investigation that we just heard there with the sanctions started over 2 years ago, but it doesn't mean that there weren't other investigations, right, Tom? It doesn't mean that the only investigation started 2.5 years and that's it, Tom?
Yeah. I mean, there are probably multiple investigations from multiple branches of government, of our government, and not only just our government, but also other governments around the world, because it looks like the way this gold has gone out over the years, it's gone to so many places that so many different types of law enforcement get involved from around the world, whether it's human trafficking or drug smuggling or weapons smuggling. All of this stuff is getting dragged into the gold smuggling. And so yeah, it's it has become one of those things that, because it's gone on for so long and it's having an effect around the world, that many people know about this now, all over the place. It's no longer a secret if they thought that it was. And that's why the US has stepped in. And look, Guyana now is on the world scene. So this is unavoidable. This system is going to be modernized. They're going to build a government apparatus that's going to track all of this stuff. Okay. And so the gravy train, I guess, is over for some folks. They're going to have to find another way to access the gold and pay the tariffs or whatever they have to pay to do whatever they got to do. But the bottom line is Guyana's on the scene now. They're up. It's no longer a backwater nation. And so, yes, this system is going to be fixed. And this is the first step in it.
I know, but we can't depend on these corrupt politicians like Jack Deal and Irfan and these guys to fix the system, Tom.
But that's why the sanctions happened, right? Because now things are going to have to move. Because like Jack Dale said, they had to get FIU involved. They had to get the Bank of Guyana involved to find out, well, how does this impact the economy? Well, yeah, it's going to impact the economy. And so look, the smuggling is still occurring. So even though they sanctioned the Mohammeds, the smuggling is still happening. So with that said, this has impacted the economy. The smuggling is still occurring. Things are still unfolding. If they don't get an apparatus in place, this thing, because of the sanctions and because it was the Mohammeds, it's going to cause everything to spiral out of control. They're not going to be able to keep this under their control, and it's going to be a massive mess. So they really don't have a choice, whether or not they can be trusted or not. They have to get a system in place, or this whole thing is going to come collapsing in on itself.
Tom, I don't want us to spend much time on Jagdeev's so-called press conference, but you have covered, you have done a large amount of investigations. You were able to bring certain powerful politicians down. You were able to investigate them and then expose them in terms of corruption and so forth. Have you ever seen, though, a so-called quote-unquote press conference, as I assume maybe you listen to Jack Dale occasionally, maybe once or twice? Have you ever seen any politician around the world, especially in the U.S., calling that a press conference? Is it?
I mean, that was a legit press conference. Okay, I mean, it's funny, right? It's sort of in line with. I think Putin has done some press conferences that go on and on and on.
Yep.
Maduro has done some that have gone on and on and on, right? And so, yeah, I mean, he's sort of in line with the dictator multi-hour, screed, and that's kind of what he did. And so, yeah, I've seen that, and these guys do that, yeah. So he's sort of in line with all that.
But what about the press and the journalists and the reporters there and their line of
man, look, I got to give the press in Guyana some credit, man. They were coming with some tough questions. They were not backing down. Okay. And you could tell.
I heard, not to cut you, Tom, I heard one, and I got to give that Stabrook News reporter and then their Kaieteur News reporters as well. The rest of them, for the most part, are basically pro PPP. Chronicle.
Yeah, well, you're right, but I gotta say, man, there was a woman there that she was going back and forth with
Chronicle,
him.
Yeah, no, that's the Stabrook News. Marcel, Marcel Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
She was. Kudos to her.
Continue. But let me just tell you something. Like, there are very few journalists who are willing to do that with a world leader. I'm just telling you. Right? Even American journalists don't want to go toe to toe with a world leader like that, the way she did. Yeah,
well, there were a couple of reporters went toe to toe with Trump.
Yeah, right. So I have to give the Guyanese press some credit, man. And you could tell even the ones who were pro PPP, you could tell even their questions. They had the tone in their voice was, they sounded a little bit fed up. That they didn't want to continue to have to.
Tom, they are fed up reading from a script.
That's yeah, you could tell. That's what I'm saying. You could tell they're fed up too, but you could hear it, and they were letting it come through. Which, look, when you're dealing with the media, that's why I give these guys credit. When you deal with the media will expose the truth to you through multiple ways. They can't always just say flat out, here's the truth. Some of them have to basically print lies, but they do it in a way, if you can read between those lies, you can see, hey, they don't want to do this. The truth is there, kind of pick it out, and they will leave a little cookie crumb trail for you to get to the truth. Even the ones who are forced to be PPP, it sounds like these guys are trying to allow the truth to be known in Guyana. So I give the press, the media in Guyana some credit. I really do. I think it sounds like, man, there are some good players in the media in Guyana, man. So that's a great thing. And then you got people on the outside like me and you, so I think considering, what's happening, there's some really good media coverage here, in my opinion.
Some brave, and a lot of those folks operate under duress. They are threatened by the state. They're threatened by Jack Dale. They're threatened by some of his not necessarily direct physical threat, but of course, a threat of sanctions, boycotting their businesses and all these sort of things, their media houses. That is how these dictators operate right there in Guyana. I noticed a question though, Tom, and it's from Leighton Charles. And Leighton Charles, another politician. Leighton, good night. Leighton Charles is saying here, who will provide that information on the other players that are involved? Definitely it wouldn't come from the PPP administration. Now, we do know that not only the Mohammeds, Azraeldin and his father Nazar, and the permanent secretary, Jack Deer's friend, Toussaint, we know that they're not the only ones, but who will provide that information so that the general public could get a better understanding as to who those crooks are behind the scene?
Well, I mean, so the way that it's been set up is the PPP have an opportunity to do that themselves. They do. All right.
One second. Do you think they know? Do you think they got the complete report on the sanctions and the players? Do you think
No,
they were
they
given all
didn't.
that?
No, the PPP, they don't have the information. They don't have it. Um, and so, see, the way this was done, it was done so that the PPP is going to be forced to fix this problem. Now, if I were advising them, right, what I would do is I would work with the opposition to create a standalone advisory board or some type of commission that would be in charge of getting to the bottom of all of this. Something that no one in the PPP can have influence over, something that can stand above the fray. That would be my advice, right? Now, I think that would fix the problem pretty quickly. The reason why that's not happening is not because they don't know about using something like that. It's clearly because they won't be able to control it, and they need to control such a thing. Why do they need to control it? That's the problem. And that's why I think this was set up this way by the US government. It's going to force, if there's going to be a true resolution from the PPP on this, it's going to force them to reach out to the opposition and allow something to happen that they won't be able to control 100%. That's the only way it will work. And here's the thing. That's the only way Guyana will work as a country going forward. It has to be a country, a nation that no matter who's in power, they reach out to the opposition and create opportunities to work together in a productive way to get hard things done, like the gold smuggling issue.
You know, Tom, this is unlike what we see sometimes in the Congress, whether they work out deals in order for bills to be passed, whether it's immigration reform, whether it has to do with anything else. They strike deals among each other and they come to some sort of compromise. Not in Guyana. This dictator, Barrett Jagdeo, and his crony, Irfan Ali, they do not reach out, they do not work with the opposition in the best interest or for the best interest of the country. They just do not do that, Tom. And these guys, these vagabonds in the PPP, will never do that. They feel that they're so righteous. They'll try to cover up every single thing with the sanctions, every single thing with the sanctions, because they are embarrassed. They've been caught with their pants down, so to speak. This leads me to this final question before we go, though. And, you know, just your opinion that why do you feel, because we are hearing that a lot of these PPP officials, including Barrett Jagdeo, are afraid to travel outside of Guyana. But more so, they are afraid to travel to the United States of America. Why do you think that they are afraid?
I mean, look, anytime that we land sanctions the way that we did through the Global Magnitsky Act, and it's on the Mohammeds, and it's on a PPP high level ranking PPP member, that means everyone in leadership on the PPP has to look over their shoulder no matter what they do now. Period. So I could see why they'd be worried about coming here. I could understand. Now, it wouldn't surprise me if they would come here. I mean, I'm not saying they can't come here. I'm just saying I could understand how they would feel nervous, because the sanctions that came down, that's a significant thing. I can't say it enough. It's so significant that, yes, it has all of them worried. For sure, it has to, because it hits too close to home.
Too close to home, indeed. The last we heard, and we oftentimes hear, that police officers are being pulled in and questioned whenever they travel to the United States of America. A very senior CID officer responsible for crime by the name of Caesar. Caesar was pulled in and questioned. He returned to Guyana, and we never heard anything else from him after that. How concerned should Guyanese be when senior members of the Guyana Police Force have either gotten their visas revoked, or whenever they travel to the U.S., they are pulled in and questioned? How concerned should Guyanese be?
I mean, so because here's where the people of Guyana should be concerned, I believe. It's in the actual functioning of the government and the structure of it, where the people at the top and who are in charge are being corrupted. And when they're corrupted, the police force can't do their job now, right? Because what happens is if the high level officials are corrupted and they cut a deal with a human smuggler, and the human smuggler comes to Georgetown with 100 people they're smuggling, and the police try to stop it, well, the police aren't allowed to stop it. Why? Because this smuggler has a deal with the high level official. So now the police have to figure out who they're allowed to arrest and who they aren't allowed to arrest. Right? And it can't be known publicly. It has to all be done secretly because it's all corrupt. And that's the problem, right? So whenever I look at law enforcement in a nation like Guyana, and I look at the people of Guyana, I say, well, look, if someone went into law enforcement, that's someone who started off believing in rule of law, and they're trying to make an impact on that and bring that to the country they live in. Most likely that's what's in them to do. When those people get into law enforcement and they have to work underneath corrupt elected officials, that becomes an untenable situation. It becomes an impossible situation because the law enforcement, they're putting their lives on the line a lot of times, going out there defending the general public. And if up above them, the officials that are their bosses, if they're corrupt, well, they have no backup now, right? So they have no backup. They aren't allowed to arrest whoever they want to arrest. And they have to basically be forced to probably take bribes, or else they'll get in trouble too. So that's the problem. And that's what the people of Guyana should be worried about is on the elected official end, and the end of the government, where the ministers, the people in charge, these are the people that have to get extra scrutiny. They have to be removed if they're corrupt and replaced. And there has to be a focus on having a government that is led by people who aren't corrupt. If you can't do that, then you're going to have a problem with your law enforcement no matter what you do.
Well said. 6 minutes after 10 o'clock, we saw a massive change of law enforcement in Guyana under the coalition government. Those of you who have lived through Guyana during that period and, of course, experience, Guyana was able to breathe again under the coalition, under David Arthur Granger's presidency. Tom, as we prepare to go, what do you suspect may be the next move? I asked this question because I know you were busy with investigating other politicians in the United States and other places. And I suspect you may have done something during the Ed Ahmed situation, where some powerful politicians were involved with Ed Ahmed. Some took some money and all manner of different things. And Ed Ahmed connected to Jack Dale. Lots of stuff were shipped from China to Guyana. At State House, Barrett Jack Dale was able to build his house with lots and lots of materials from China, and with the connection of Ed Ahmed. But my question to you, sir, is with regards to this sanction, what do you think could possibly be the next move, assuming that you have a crystal ball in your hands as we wrap up?
Well, usually what happens with sanctions is they get ratcheted up. If the government doesn't do anything about it, and it looks like the PPP, they're not going to do anything about what just happened, then more sanctions will come, right? And as more sanctions come, it's going to cause a ripple effect into the economy of Guyana. So, and that ripple effect will be seen on the street and with the people, and this will affect elections. So, look, this is just the beginning, but I fully expect to see more sanctions. And on top of that, there is going to be an economic impact here, a big one probably. And so the people in Guyana can look out for different businesses that they're used to having, maybe seeing them go out of business all of a sudden, because the money flow that they were getting is cut off because the sanctions cut it off. Like, that can happen, right? So that's some of the things that should be watched out for now is how bad will it hurt the economy in Guyana? Will it hurt the economy? I think it might, because I think the amount of it's not just the gold here. I think there are a lot of other things that were being smuggled both in and out of the country. And I think it's going to affect the currency. I think this is going to have a much bigger impact than anyone really has vision for right now. And so, with that said, I do see more sanctions, but I actually see an economic impact on this as well. And it'll be interesting to see how big of one it is. But we'll know if something big starts happening economically in Guyana. Well, you'll know that whoa, that means the Mohammeds had that much of an impact on the economy of Guyana. So we'll know going forward just how integral the Mohammeds were to the economy of Guyana, because these sanctions are going to affect that in a serious way.
Well said. Integral in their hands in almost every single thing, according to U.S. law enforcement agencies. Lots of law enforcement agencies outside of Guyana, and these U.S. law enforcement agencies have said that the Mohammeds have corrupted almost every agency in Guyana. Almost every agency, from police to judiciary to politicians, you name it. And so we await to see the impact. We await to hear from Irfan Ali, who is quiet on the issue. We all know why Irfan Ali is so quiet in the issue, because he's a friend of the Mohammeds, and he is a recipient of gifts from the Mohammeds. And maybe that's why, and I say recipients of gifts, because he allegedly got some vehicles, and God in heaven knows what else he took from the Mohammeds. But for now, Tom, I want to thank you so much, unless you have some other thing that you want to close off with tonight.
That's good, man. Thank you very much, man. Thanks for having me on again. Have a good night, everybody.
Always a pleasure to have you on, Tom Anderson. Look forward to see you back again. And I hope that case with Menendez, how is it going?
Oh man, that case is crazy, man. It kicked back in today, but that's another case. Look, man, pay attention to that, because that is going to have an impact on the world stage as well.
Gold bar
Bob, man. And I can't announce it yet, but I am in negotiations for writing a book on it. So let's see if that happens.
We'll talk about that certainly. Thank you. You should write a lot of books. How is Meeks doing, by the way? Meeks seemed to not giving up on his friends in Guyana there, but we can talk about him some other time too. Tom, thank you so much for your time.
Good night, guys. Thank you much. Take care.
Right. Tom Anderson there, and this is huge. The sanctions against the Mohammed and that PPP official and that government official. She's not the only one. She's not, again, before I go, she's not the only one at all. We know that there are higher ups in the PPP, higher ups in the government who are involved, because she cannot just be a permanent secretary that wields all of that power. I'm not saying she doesn't have power whenever she sits in meeting and yells at the fire folks, the policemen, and all these different things. She yells. I was told that over almost or approximately 20-something folks quit the Ministry of Home Affairs while she was there. But I have a question for Robeson Ben. Why is Robeson Ben so quiet? You can't tell me that his name has not been called, because when the U.S. authorities, when they took her phone, they didn't take her phone to read a text message, an I love you text message, or lend me some money text message, or a cuss out text message, or whatever. They were able to get all of the important information from that phone. All of the information, text messages and other information to high power PPP officials. They probably saw text messages between her and Barra Jagdeo. They probably saw text messages between her and Irfan Ali. They obviously saw text messages between her and the Mohammeds. And you can't tell me that her boss, her immediate boss, Robeson Ben, has not been sanctioned. You cannot tell me that there aren't other officials in the PPP that were not sanctioned, and other businessmen that were not sanctioned. But what we will do, or what we will hear, is that there are other gold dealers / smugglers who probably are on the verge of being sanctioned too. But here's a prediction. I wouldn't be surprised if the Americans decided that law enforcement officers decide that they are now going to ask the installed government of Guyana to extradite the Mohammeds to the United States of America. Because there is a high possibility that they have been indicted for serious, serious crimes. There's a high possibility that they have been indicted. I'm out of here, guys. God bless you all. Thank you for tuning in this evening. And we'll see you back tomorrow. Same place, same time. Ta-ta.
Basement level vibes with another one, straight up blackness. Aye, who tell the truth? Mark Benscop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benscop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benscop, straight up from the root. Mark Benscop, who tell the truth? Mark Benscop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benscop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benscop, straight up from the root. Mark Benscop, I do it for the love, him not do it for no money. Straight up, him attack, educating everybody. Big up my friends and big up my family. Turn on the radio, catch the vibes, it's integrity. Straight up, Benscop stands for unity. One people, one nation, one destiny. Free up the truth in the air, even the blind can see. The deaf can hear, the dumb can talk, the cripple can walk. Boom. Who tell the truth? Mark Benscop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benscop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benscop, straight up from the root. Mark Benscop, who tell the truth? Mark Benscop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benscop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benscop, straight up from the root. Mark Benscop, we have to gather round, grab a seat and sit down, pay attention. Education, liberation.
Yeah, my name is Jasmine Kaldata Francis Vietnam, and since 1965 I become a voter, and I always place my X next to the cup, and what they are doing today, I can't take it. So I have no more vote to give to PPP anymore. I'm not going to vote anymore no more. If they have to lose by one vote, they're losing it by
Oh, Jesus Christ, if cost of living double, I don't know what happened. A pound of sugar is $300 already. Flour, everything gone up. Everything just raising. You gotta get about $40,000 for buy good ration. You gotta get 3 man now. A weekend man, a monthly man, and a fortnight man.
How we gonna do a body man walk right now? You ready? Boxer, let me go now. Hear me sing now. Body walk, body walk, body walk, everything. Body walk, truck, body walk, body walk, body walk, everything. Body, listen. Body jump, body jump, body jump, everything. Body jump, body jump, body jump, body jump, everything. Hear me sing, so big body can't wear it tight pants, big body jump.
So if I got children, I must suffer them to take what I don't want to eat for myself. That is totally wrong.
What?
And the parents got to stand up.
Rhonda, really thank you for taking time out. I'm not going to let you go now. I know you're a very brave person. You're out there in front of GCOM. We're not seeing a lot of people out there, but give us an update on the protest every week in front of GCOM.
Tuesday we had 8 persons. Essentially.
One second, Rhonda. I kind of like, honestly, I like that laugh. I'm going to rephrase, I'm going to ask the question again. And
Man, don't make me laugh, man. I tell you.
Rhonda, one second. One second, Rhonda. I'll ask you the question again. Rhonda, can you give us an update on the protest in front of GCOM?
Man, he had 8 persons at the protest.
Take responsibility. We want you to look out for us. We do not want no segregation. No. We are one people. And if we're going to do it, let's do it together. Because we have respect for you. Thank you.
If we don't want because we're excited to see you here. We're coming. Hold on. You got the roti? You got to be kidding me. You got the roti, don't worry. See, you used to make roti when he was 5. But let me see if you can clap. You got shake now. You got shake. Shake it in. This is the all right. This is the modern way. Okay. Look, sweetheart, this is it. All right. Let's show you shake it. Farmer Steve roti, the best roti in Brooklyn.
At this role as president as the days go ahead. So that's Dr. Ali leaving the Artichon Conference Center in the vehicle that he's been driving around with for the longest while. A presidential vehicle did come here, but Dr. Ali is not using that vehicle. He's moving off with the vehicle that he has been in. Didn't even have time to get a proper